Hello, everyone. Welcome to this session. Lovely to have your company. And a big thank you to Fleur this morning for a wonderful session. Well done. I don't think we've got Jeannie Marie here to thank her as well. But yeah, it's a wonderful session. Thank you so much. This session now is a focus on permaculture education. And the topic that I put forward today for this tutorial is really looking at what are some of the creative and localized ways that we can deliver our course content, because every single one of you have a particular set of context in which you exist, in which you'll be teaching, in whatever way that might look like. And so what I wanted to do was to create a space where we could explore what happens with that. So first of all, what we might do, just to kind of land and ground ourselves, I'm going to put us into breakout rooms, and maybe just with the people in your group, just share for a couple of minutes each where you are, what's the kind of permaculture education that you're looking to do, and a little bit about your context. What's your constraints, or what's the culture? What's the frame of the kind of permaculture education that you think you might like to do? And hang on, we just got a whole lot of extra people just dropping their way in here, so I might just actually make it another couple of rooms. Hang on a tick. Welcome, everyone. Lovely to see you. Let me just add another room. Actually, I might add another room again. All right. Whoop, more people. Lovely. Right. Well, let me start again, because you probably missed most of what I just said then, and I really want you to have a sense of this. So welcome, everyone. This is an interactive tutorial focused on how we can create our localized permaculture education programs wherever you may be. So before I begin, though, I would like to acknowledge that I'm seated here on the traditional lands of the Gubbi Gubbi, or Cubby Cubby, and pay my respects to their elders past and present. I would maybe invite you to drop in when you're having a chat with the small group just in a moment, where you're calling in from as well. So I will drop the questions into an announcement when I put you over there. So we'll just go over there for maybe sort of 7 to 10 minutes or so. So it gives everyone a chance in the room to have a couple of minutes to talk about where you are, what kind of education that you're thinking of doing, and what are the constraints or opportunities that are particular to your area. Hello, welcome back. Lovely to have you back again. So I hope in that session you had a chance to pull apart maybe some of the key opportunities and constraints that are in your area. I'm not necessarily going to ask for you to report back on those. That's something that we need to keep asking and exploring in our world. So some of the key points that I wrote down here that I wanted to make sure that you're thinking about when you're considering the kinds of education programs that you're designing is, firstly, relevance. Like, how relevant is this topic, is the way that you're offering it to your audience? I'm just going to just drop in some mutes. That's all. Just there's a bit of feedback going on in my end. Don't know where that's coming from. Anyway, I can hear radio. Can anyone else hear radio?
It's Sarah. Is it Sarah Dwyer?
Yeah, I can't get.
Oh, there we go. She did it. All right. Sorry about that. So relevant. How relevant is it to your group? So, for example, you might be wanting to explore. Well, it could be a relevant topic, or it could be a relevant way that you're offering this program. So just for example, a very basic one that just pictures this concept would be, well, okay, so you're getting to zone 3 in teaching permaculture in an urban context. What do you teach? What do you teach in a zone 3 to make it relevant? So how would you respond to that? What would you say? So it's going to be quite different, Julie, from what you might teach out in your farmers. Greg, it may be something quite different for you because you're on a farm actually in an urban, peri-urban area. But open up your mic, somebody, and just say, look, if you were to teach zone three being the farm zone, in an urban permaculture workshop, how might you make it relevant?
First thing I think of is a farmer's market up the road.
Yeah. So you expand your field of, it's not just about what's on your block or even in your neighborhood. The zone 3 in this context is thinking about, well, where is the main production zones for me and my neighbors? And it may well be that it's a much broader range and it's dispersed. It's a dissipated farm zone. And how might you then create a different kind of set of relationships with that rather than a direct one? So you may talk about, how to keep small scale animals, or how to build a relationship with the local farm, or how you might connect with a local community farm, like, out at Millen Farms. There might be a whole other set of different relationships that you probably might not talk about a whole lot if you're teaching out on large scale farming systems. So, Greg, go ahead.
Yeah, one of the constraints we had at Millen was that the council wouldn't let us have small animals. So that became a problem in introducing that circle of, in the way things operate. But certainly your concept of having a communal farm on private land would enable you the flexibility to actually introduce that. And I think it's important that those sort of small agricultural farms become established, because a lot of people from the cities are coming out into the peri-urban areas and taking on sheep and goats and not knowing the husbandry involved. So if you've got an area where you can actually see that and become a volunteer and become adept at the ways to manage your animals, that would be invaluable to a lot of these people coming out into the peri-urban areas.
Yeah. And, there's also a lot of people who've just moved on to small acreages in recent times as well. So the question that I'm asking here is really about, there is a curriculum that is the permaculture course, but how you deliver it is different depending on where you are, what your context is that you're in. You need to obviously cover a whole lot of different things, but how you cover it is really important, so that it makes it relevant. You may well begin your session saying to people, welcome to our session on animals in permaculture. I wonder where you're all based. What are the kind of places that you're working on? Is anyone going to be working on a farm, or, and to gather it? So then you can kind of even right then and there be adaptable and pitch your content differently. But you kind of have a general frame that it's going to be smaller scale or even urban or maybe even more relational. And so you've kind of staged how you might do things a bit differently. Fleur, go ahead.
I was thinking even like the box outside, like you'd have the, like they have at Millen Farms, is the exchanging of like library books and your extra foods and your extra plants and stuff like that. Yeah. Is really the zone 3 sort of thing.
Yeah. So how are you doing production in your plot, in your place that has something that's going off farm, whether it be for money or for an exchange of goods or services in another way? That doesn't really matter necessarily, but you can kind of see that as part of your production system. Yeah. Thanks, Fleur.
No worries.
Julie, what were you thinking?
I was even thinking about the swaps in the market garden, the farmers markets, but even to the choices of where you're choosing to buy your food. So people who don't have access to community gardens, if they're going to a shop or to a cafe or to a restaurant, that they're looking for ones that align with similar permaculture principles, that they're supporting a business that is then fulfilling that place, that they're buying from somebody who's growing organically or ethically or those sorts of principles. So it's not McDonald's, like it's going to somewhere where they maybe support a local business who is then supporting that food system.
Yeah. So this is sort of the other part of the question is, so it's not just what you're teaching, but how you're teaching it. So just imagine if you had a 2-week permaculture course. Quite often in a 2-week permaculture course, or like a full permaculture design course, it could be, spread out over a period of time, however you want to stage it. But we often have field trips. And so if you were doing an urban permaculture workshop, let's just keep it in that same thread that we're talking about, and you're wanting to talk about Zone 3, where might you take people? We've heard, therefore, a range of different things. We might take them to a local community farm. We might take them to a peri-urban farm. We might take them to a farmer's market to meet some of the farmers. We may take them to a restaurant that has relationships with farmers and talk about the farm-to-table concept. So this is the other part. Like, what are the creative ideas that you can come up with to bring the awareness, the full awareness of what does Zone 3 permaculture thinking and design look like from lots of different angles? So I wonder if you want to just have a bit of a think on that for a moment and offer us some suggestions of what might be a creative idea that you could actually do to introduce Zone 3 permaculture in the place that you are. So I maybe just have a bit of a think for a moment. So I just give everyone a chance to have a think. If you're going to teach Zone 3 permaculture where you are, what are the kinds of things that you would include? And what is some kind of interesting way that you may introduce it so that it's not just out of the textbook, but it's actually bringing it into relevance to the people that you're teaching and to the context that you're in? Go ahead, Daniela.
Since many of the offers that are out there locally are very small, they are not very much known. So a very simple thing would be to do a little just ask the people what is available here in your village, in your town. Where can you shop locally here? Like, is it the eggs? Is it the farmer that sells very good meat or whatever? Just to collect the ideas as a first step.
Yeah, great.
Before going out and maybe visiting one of those.
So
that
how might
go
you
home with the
collect
list.
that?
Sorry.
Yeah, great idea. How might you collect that? What processes might you use to gather that information from the people that you're with? Sorry. Daniela, I was asking that back to you. Sorry. You're on mute now.
Sorry.
That's all right. No, I was just wondering.
Yeah, as the word I was looking for is brainstorming, as Doris kindly wrote in the chat. Collecting it in a visual way, maybe write it down somewhere and then just photograph it and put it in the handout. That's the easiest way to do it.
Nice. Yeah.
Or have what I did once is having a kind of a map of the area. And
nice.
Do little stickers on the map or something.
Yeah. And I've got this book here. Has anyone got this one? The Permaculture Teacher's Guide. I might see if I've got to try and get you copies of this because it's out of print and it's really used. It's what Permaculture Britain put together, 20 odd years ago with some WWF funding. And basically it goes through all these different, you're not going to see that. I'll explain. It goes through a whole lot of different types of activities that teachers do. And it goes through why I include this session, what's the objective, what are the learning outcomes, how long, all the kind of planning that we do in the teachers part of the course. And then then it gives ideas of how you might teach it. Like, what do they do to teach it? So they give you ideas. Someone's here's got Kathy Whitefield's talking about the function of trees. So she sometimes might do a visualization. She might do a brainstorm. She might do a talk. And here's another one about native trees and their way of brainstorming. I don't know if you can see that there. They actually had a tree. So when they were brainstorming, the arms of the branches of the tree were talking about actually the qualities that they were brainstorming. And so they just use their creative structure instead of just having sticky notes or a listicle of ideas, something that helps the ideas to stick because it's creating this conceptual framework. So, even with the brainstorms, we can get a little bit creative in terms of how we might do it, or even think about, you could have someone at the front who's got the pen and is writing it all up, which is still a disconnect from people, or you could actually have everyone writing their own leaf, like if we're taking the same tree concept, asking people to sit back and think about the ideas and then write their own leaf and then bring it in and kind of speak it as they're putting it on the tree. There's different ways of engaging people in the process and being part of co-creating the map, the collective map that you're creating. So, so what I'm asking us to think about here is the content, is the process, is our best ways of engagement, and each particular person who's doing it is going to have a different way. So if you're working with corporate officers, it's going to be a very different thing if you're working kids from the local school. Kids from local school probably have a far less, attention span. You've got to have a lot more dynamic things up and get your hands in. In actual fact, probably you have a lot more attention for a lot of people if you start getting a lot more active as well. So, Latimba, go ahead. You need to unmute first, sorry. Can you unmute yourself? Oh, there we go. Perfect.
Yes, I did.
Hi.
Yeah, do you hear me, please?
Perfect.
Hello? Hello?
Hello.
Yeah, okay. It's nice discussion, especially for issue for the creativity. In my group, I integrated the traditional medicine into my permaculture programs. And why I do the integrated, because I recognize that most of the members or students which I'm teach, they need to know different traditional medicine. And now traditional medicine started to disappear. So this program to me it's come like an idea that I need to be traditional medicine knowledge keeper. So the strategies that I did, it's come the time for the break time after the lessons. I asked every single member just to go in the forest because I'm teaching them in the farm. So they went in the farm to pick up. I ordered them, please come with everyone a single plant or leaves or tree, which is quite different from others. So yes, they did. And they come with different trees, and there were 19 students that day. So that day, of course, we gathered the different information, traditional medicine from 19 plants or 19 trees. So this session, of course, it's become curiosity to the members, and they ask it to continue with this program because we have different plant species and they're working in the families or in our tradition. So the last when they asked me to continue with this session, that's something that everyone or every member or in the community we can have a different traditional medicine to cure different diseases. So to me, this was one of creativity and I encourage it to records and just to have a publication or to keep this knowledge in wherever I can, either by documentation or by video, because I took the video so I can share with the locals or will be useful for the next generation. So that's why I wanted to share with you and how we do and how we teach it in my community.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. That's amazing. And And what that reminded me of was a project that I came across in Indonesia, where the young children and their grandparents were working together in a school. And the project was that the young children would go home and ask their grandparents about a medicinal plant, a traditional food, ways of using it, what the names were. And so they, as well as bringing the plant in, they brought their grandmother back to the school and they created this grandmother's garden. And in the garden, they planted all the plants out and they made signs. And the signs had the botanical name and the English name. But most importantly, above all of that was all the local names that it's known by and its uses. And then they had this booklet that they created, which had all the different recipes that they gathered as well. And this became this collective book that got added to each year, that new students brought more grandmothers along. And I just think, you know, what a wonderful, well, actually, it's not wonderful. It's essential work to be doing, is to be documenting this, you know, this biodiversity, this traditional knowledge, traditional seeds, and all the ways of using it for medicine and for food. And you know, I think wherever we are, if we can do this more, it's just so valuable. So yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Thank you very much.
Did anyone else have anything in response to the questions we were asking before? Anything that's bubbling up that you want to jump in and say? No. All right. What I'm going to do now is drop you back into rooms. They're going to be different rooms this time. And well, actually, before, no, that's okay. We'll do that. So I'm going to recreate the rooms, and hopefully they'll work this time. So let me see. So what I'd like to challenge you to do here is to pick a topic. So maybe pick something quite simple, like how might I teach about food forest, or how might I teach about soils, or how might I teach about, what's another topic? What is permaculture? You know, pick a topic as a group and pick an audience. So say, okay, we're going to teach children, or we're going to teach farmers, or we're going to teach grandmothers. Pick a group. And then come up with 3 different ideas of ways that you might create a class to teach that group about that particular topic in a way that's going to engage them and pass on some really valuable knowledge, and encourage them to be really uplifted by it and want to take it out and share it with other people. Okay. All right. So a bit of a challenge. Let's see where we go with this. Okay, I hope that those rooms are going to work right. If they're not, you can always just leave the room and come back and I can relocate you. So again, just 10 minutes for this, and have fun with it. You know, really just play, see what you come up with. Bring in something, you may have an experience that you've already found that's worked, but see if you can come up with something fresh and new. So. Hello, welcome back. Oh, you look nice and cool there, Jeannie Marie. You've got all your hats on, hat and scarf. All righty. Well, I hope there was a possibility of having some really good exploration there. I'd love to hear some ideas that came out of that. Does anyone want to jump in and have a share? All right. So maybe, so how many groups? I can't remember how many groups there. There was 5 groups. We don't necessarily have to hear from every group, but if you'd like to jump in and share something about what happened in your group, please feel free. We'll go to Fleur first, and then we'll go to Daniela, and let Latimba back in again, and then Anne. Okay, go ahead, Fleur.
Okay, we decided to do soil. There's 3 of us, and we come up with a whole heap of brainstorming, and we said, they come up with some really good ideas of doing like what the soil was like in the past, what the soils would be like, what we've got now, and what the future could be with the soil. Different types of weeds that grow in different types of soil, compare different types of soil, having a demonstration site, and like talking different types of soil. Example, like you have, I was explaining overseas, we used to make our own soil. So we'd add like coconut husks in, we'd add sand in, we'd add all the different things. So, and then you have a different type of soil for cactuses, and so you could do all that. And then the advance from that, you could make weed teas or composting teas and all that. But we had a lot.
A lot of ideas. And so, you can do this. Take a thread, take a topic, and just do your own brainstorm. Maybe make your own mind map of all the possible ways that you could teach soil. But maybe first, though, put in the middle, who is it that you're doing this for? Because, the ideas are endless. There are so many. So who are you doing it for, and where is it, to give you a bit of a climate context? And also, maybe just to give yourself a little bit more of a frame, is think, okay, this is going to be a one-day workshop, or it's going to be a 1-hour workshop. It's a part of a whole thing. Like, what's your bigger context as well for that going in?
We did have the community. Sorry, I forgot to say that.
No, that's all right. I know you would have talked about that there. I was just thinking, for your own brainstorms, have that context. But things like what you're saying, what the weeds are telling you.
Yes,
such a fun and fascinating thing. And if you notice you've got weeds around your site, like, don't clean them up before they come. Sort of go around and say, so when you see this weed here, this is the indicator for this particular thing. And by the way, did you know you could actually eat this one or do this with it, and make a story out of that as well. And then the other thing too is that, anything that's practical or hands-on, if you can manage it, to really get in and do that, whether it be making the compost. The other thing I really like to do with soil, particularly when you've got a group of beginners, is just get them to get down and get their hands on soil and just to feel it. And so I get them to feel soil from different places. So there might be a really rocky, hard, dry, crumbly spot. There might be a bit that's kind of sticky clay or whatever. And then there's the bit that's the really nice, rich soil in the garden. And I get them to feel it, get them to kind of squish it in their fingers. Like, what's the texture of it? Does it stick? Or does it just fall through your fingers? Or has it got a nice crumbly, spongy feel? And then I get them to smell it, the whole sensory experience. I suggest, that they lick it as well. Not many people take it. But, there's that, it's that thing of knowing whether it's a sweet or sour, what are all the different ways that you can have a sense. And I often too, I tell people that one of the things that I really love to do is to walk on the soil in my bare feet. And that my feet themselves are sensors of the health and the quality of the soil. If I'm walking along the soil and I feel it starting to sort of squish a bit, I think, ooh, I might go, move on to a path, because there's so much air in it and life. Does it feel dry and crusty, or does it feel nice and moist and alive? So, over the years, because I've always worn bare feet out in the garden, I can really sense, it's getting like this morning. It's really getting cold. I'm, the seasons have really shifted. The ground is really cold in the morning. Things are going to grow differently now. There's a different season that's certainly in place. And I have to be far more mindful too of watching out for frosts and all different sorts of things. There's massive winds coming through at the moment. I'm starting to feel the dryness in certain patches. So making sure that I'm topping up mulch. And so my feet are telling me all this stuff when I go for a walk around my garden in the morning. And I think, you can talk about that kind of stuff. How do you experience, and how do you notice? How do you see? How do you test? And share your stories. Daniela, go ahead. Thanks, Fleur.
We collected ideas on how to teach children, like from 6 to 10 elementary school, about the interconnectedness of things, ecosystems. So there was one that is from Engie, I think, where each child is part of an ecosystem, a tree, a bee, soil, a worm, whatever, and you throw yarn from one to each other, and then you see the net. And what happens if the bees suddenly are not there anymore? What happens to the net and stuff like that? Then we thought of a game of tag somehow, like everybody is an element of the ecosystem, and you can play some music, and when you stop, you have to find somebody else and figure out, how am I connected to that person, or that, I don't know, how is the tree connected to the worm, for example. You could use like indigenous stories about the interconnectedness of things. And maybe when the location is, when you have the location for that, you could make them draw with chalk, like a huge mandala or spider net thingy on the floor, so they can be in the web of life and see where each others are.
Wonderful. And I think, some very simple and visible game, because the interconnectedness between things is not visible, is it? You see the result of the interconnectedness, but you don't see the interconnect. It's the liminal space. It's the stuff in between. You see, and this is often where people get stuck, because they're focusing on the elements rather than thinking about the relationship. So anything that can bring that relationship into a visible space, so that we can pay attention to that, we can notice that, I think is a really important thing. And sometimes something simple like that game, that game with the string, it's one we've always done, at the start of courses with kids, and it's so much fun, and we always get a bit tangled in. There's another one that we do at permaculture courses, and it was something that I learned at Schumacher College when I was in my 20s, and it was from a Bulgarian physicist. And this game, I don't know, you might have heard of this game. Anyway, you're in a whole group of people, and you pick 2 other people, and you don't let them know that you're picking them. And you got to keep a triangle with that group of people. And everyone in the room's picked a different 2 people, and everyone's trying to keep a triangle. And so as the starter of it, you kind of move, and then all of a sudden the whole thing moves, and it starts going into this chaos spot, and then gradually it comes down into sort of a steady movement, and then it's almost getting still, and then all of a sudden it flips around and it does this thing, and it just kind of starts to show how that life in the relationships, it's never a static thing. There's always changes that happen, and when something does dramatically move, or if you move on purpose and mess it up, how it disrupts this stability in the system. So anyway, it's kind of like fun things like that, bring it in the embodiment of it. But I would, there's also this, I think it's really important to notice who's in your audience, how much of that kind of gaming that you can do. Sometimes it can be too much that way. Like I've seen where people overcompensate for thinking about, I don't want to do too much talk and chalk, so I'll do all the games. We need a balance. Some people are very auditory learners. Some people like to see the information and gather it that way. Other people are really in their body. And so we need to have that spread of possibilities and make sure that, all the different, and that we can go deep, we can go wide, we can go in our bodies, we can use all of our senses, we can build up skills, so that when you're mapping your opportunities of activities, that you think about those different learning styles as well. Anne, go ahead. Thanks, Daniela.
Right, so we've thought about teaching a gardening group about medicinal and herbal plants, because we thought they might be a bit scared of knowing what's edible and what isn't. And our approach was to take them to a garden where there are lots of these plants and have a tea tasting session. And so it will be very interactive. They can see the plant, they can smell it, they can touch it, and then we'll pick a variety of the different ones, and they can make their own teas, and then they can chat about this one's disgusting, this one tastes nice, and then we can send them home with cuttings of the ones they like to get going, and also information about the medicinal side of things and the health benefits of having all these different plants.
Very nice. Yeah, that's wonderful. One of the things I used to do when I'd invite people on a garden tour of my place, I'd open it up and I'd bring people in, and I'd have all the herbs laid out, and I'd have a whole lot of different plungers and a big urn, and I'd just invite people to do the mix and match kind of thing and just play, and that was the end of the thing. We'd all kind of do our mix and match herb teas and have a bit of refreshment. And that idea of taste testing, like even taking that into a library. I used to do that when I do library talks. I'd take in all these different teas and make them up. Instead of having the little, wrap open the plastic covered whatever's in the teas that they have in the libraries or community centres, you take all your teas with you and your plungers and give people a chance to taste. It's a really beautiful way to connect that. And I think I love the way that you talked about too of weaving the medicinal value of that as well. All right, we're just about to hit the top of the hour. We have 2 more hands up here, so let's go to you and let's see if we can try and keep on time. But if we go a couple of minutes over, please excuse me. Lucinda, go ahead.
To me, it's not a topic in such, but what can I use is just a subtopic. But generally, it's about the cooking, the traditional cooking. I get a different experience from the student or the team, how they cook their food. And what I was searching for is just to see, do people cook the healthy food or delicious food? Because here in our community, there is most people, they like delicious instead of regarding the healthy food. People, they like ice cream, the delicious food. So something that is not good for their health. So the other day I came with the idea that I need people to know how they cook the vegetable, mostly based on vegetable. So I ordered my 10 students to go back at home. The next lesson coming with their cooked food, already cooked food. And yes, they did it, and they came. We went there to test their food, and then I posed the question to them: do you think this food is delicious? Yes, they said yes. So how about the health? Is it health? Or everyone, they had no answers. But what I realized is that the food was not health. All of them, they cooked their own health, but they were delicious. Why? They cooked until 100 degrees. So every vegetables, every nutrient just went out. So the next time I prepared another lesson to cook the health food. So we cooked together and everyone tasted the good. And today, of course, they invite me to go to their home just to test what we did and what we learned them. So that's how and what we do in how I teach them.
Oh, it's fantastic. What a wonderful thing. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And this idea of cooking together to learn together, like often, particularly in permaculture gardens, people will say, but I don't know how to cook that kind of food. It's a bit different. Or, my family are not really into that kind of food, or I don't think I could. And so coming together and exploring different recipes and trying it out is a really fantastic way to and also bringing together. So even if you're in a community garden, if there's a way you can have a cook up together, or maybe it's there's so many lovely portable cookers. You could do one in the middle of your street as a neighborhood cook up, or down the local park, or at the local school. There could be lots of possibilities. There's little community kitchens everywhere these days, and you can do pop-up ones. So yeah, nice idea. I think he's popped off. Oh no, you're still there. That's good. Someone disappeared, but I thought it might have been you, but you're here. Thank you. Wonderful. And I love the way too that it's sort of like, is this, asking them and getting people to work it out themselves and to really reflect on what's happening, rather than being the person who's the telling, it's the discovery process. And I think the more that we can discover as learners, the more it actually sticks, doesn't it? Yeah. All right, Julie, let's let you be the last one here.
Okay, so we talked about teaching the topic of food forests, and our audience was elderly. So tapping into their knowledge and their knowledge sharing and their experiences, and also about sort of having that in nursing home areas, like, encouraging them to have orchards and that mental healing component, bring back memories, their personal relationships and memories to food and their experiences, guilds and how they may have looked in the past, not necessarily being called a guild, but once upon a time, all little orchards in backyards and what they remember from those, its usefulness, and maybe then sharing, bringing in food that they remember from their childhood or that they've cooked, and sharing those stories with each other and with us about that food or that meal or that plant. So getting those old stories back.
Wonderful. It reminds me of this session that I was part of yesterday. So happy International Permaculture Day for yesterday, everybody. It was a session that I was part of that was over in Western Australia. I didn't go there, obviously. I zoomed over. It was at Murdoch University, and it was hosted by Anthony James, who runs this wonderful podcast called Regeneration, which is all about narration, like the stories, what the stories are for regeneration. And we were exploring the story of permaculture, how we can restory the landscape, how we can restory. And we did this exploration a bit through our last masterclass as well, bringing in the power of storytelling and how that can shift and change how we feel about something, how things land in us, how it connects us to our depth of knowledge. Also part of the workshop that I was at this last week with the Indigenous women in the ceremony, they were talking a lot about this deep well of knowledge and tapping into that deep well. And that deep well is connected to this river of knowledge that connects so many people in so many cultures, and ways of, like really sending our roots into that so that then we can grow stronger and have much more to draw on as we grow out. And I just really love these ways of kind of describing and sharing and inviting people to, add their branches or deepen their roots, or, like think about the ecological narrative that we can wrap around the stories, and we write new stories. We don't have to tell old stories. The old stories become new stories, or the old stories have a thread in what we're weaving as we move forward, because I really do think that part of how we're going to bring the change that we need to see in the world is through having a new narrative, having new stories that make sense to you and you and you, and they're going to be different. And that's such an important thing. And it's really often, the very simple things about, sharing that experience, and something that localizes. And this is exactly what we're talking about. How can you localize and contextualize a note so it makes sense to your culture, your place, your experience, your climate, your plants, your foods, all of those things, and bring it into a space that's going to make a whole lot of sense. So there's so many really great comments too in the chat. And yes, I saw Julie, breakout rooms are never long enough. Sorry about that. It's a start anyway. But what I would really love for you all to take away from this session is, thinking about the possibilities. If you're taking any topic, to kind of sit back and think, okay, so what are the multiple possibilities that I can which directions can I go? Let me think about the shape that it might take with the those things that I was talking about. So what is its relevance? What are the resources that I have? What's the venue? Who is it for? How much does it cost? Maybe, you might have a bundle load of resources. Maybe you just got to do it on the fly. What's the cultural frame? And what are the different sorts of ways that you can deliver or engage the content and have a diversity of that? and really just to thinking about what value is it going to bring to the people who are participating.
Well,
Yeah. So thank you everyone for being here. It's been an absolute delight to have your company. And tomorrow, I'm not sure if any one of you are coming along, but we have a great session with Corinne Helbig tomorrow, who is going to be talking about creating our brands, our look, creating. So that's kind of a different course, but I know some of you are here. So don't forget, if you booked into that, that's going to be on tomorrow at 3:30 Brisbane time. So I'm just going to drop the link in just in case you haven't seen it yet. Here it is. It's a whole new series of workshops all around helping you to create, look at the business of permaculture, how you set up your structure, your getting your voice out, amplifying your voice into the world. All righty. Thank you, everyone. Lovely to have your company. Catch you again next time. Bye.
Bye.
bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.